Their planet's gravity would crush anyone, but the human systems engineer walked right in to save her. Alarm sirens blared through the decks of Celestial Outpost Helios, their shrill cries slicing through the metallic corridors, each pulse stoking the growing panic among the crew. Boots pounded the deck plates, voices tumbled into frantic shouts, and over it all, the dread hum of catastrophe vibrated in the bones of every soul aboard. Through the thick, armored windows of the control ring, watchers stared down at the planet Vera, a world now writhing under forces no one had ever seen. Waves of warped gravity rolled across its burnished bronze surface, distorting the landscape in surreal, monstrous undulations. Settlements and silver-domed research stations crumpled, tossed and shredded by invisible hands, as though the very skin of the planet had turned against them. Inside the main control room, banks of instruments erupted in cascades of data. Screens flickered with gravimetric readouts, surging off every chart. Warnings flashed red, orange, and violet. The epicenter was clear: the luminous Rift Laboratory. There, in the heart of Vera's great equatorial valley, gravitational energies raged at levels never recorded, focused like a storm around the lab, where the most daring experiments were conducted. Envoy Marek stood rigid at the viewport, knuckles whitening as he gripped the rail. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His voice, when he spoke, barely cut through the chaos. "She's down there," he muttered, barely audible. "My daughter, Sira. She's trapped with the others." His words hung, desperate and raw. Supreme Regent Kalos, his massive form encased in plates of iridescent prismatic armor, loomed at Marek's side. His deep voice reverberated, solemn. "Our rescue units cannot operate in these conditions. The forces below surpass anything our technology has ever faced." His head shook, slow and heavy, as though he bore the weight of the planet itself. No vessel could survive that descent. Commander Rylan, uniform crisp but eyes wild with frustration, slammed a fist on the console. "There must be something. Options, Dr. Sen?" Dr. Lyra Sen, mission supervisor, her face pale behind a scattering of dark curls, shook her head. "We've tried every configuration. Shields, dampeners, field inverters. Nothing holds. Even the drones disintegrate on entry." Her gaze darted to Marek, then to the rest. "No known technology can withstand those extremes, not for long enough to get anyone out." A hush fell, thick with dread, but then, from the periphery, a voice broke the silence. "I'll go." All eyes turned to Rowan Drake, the lone human systems engineer among the outpost's crew. He stood with a calm that seemed almost out of place, hands steady at his sides. His gaze didn't waver as the room regarded him in shock. Dr. Sen's voice was tight with fear. "Rowan, that's suicide. You won't make it past the upper atmosphere." Even with the best grav dampeners, human physiology isn't built for this. Her concern was personal, and it showed in every syllable. Rowan met her eyes, a flicker of something indefinable crossing his face. "I've worked the gravity wells of Ganymede," he said, voice even. "Survived the pressure mines of Io. I'm not giving up on them." He drew a breath, then reached to the pack at his side, withdrawing a sleek, untested device, his own creation, the Grav Adaptive Harness. "This is experimental, but it might hold, at least long enough." Kalos regarded him with skepticism, arms crossed over his immense chest. "Vera's gravity is already triple that of Earth. Now it peaks at nearly 10 times. No one has ever survived those levels." Rowan's jaw set. "Then I'll be the first. I'm not asking for permission." He held the harness up. "It can modulate gravitational stress, at least in theory. I'll have to adjust on the fly." Commander Ryland's voice dropped. "If you make it, get the lab team to the evac pod. That's all that matters." Envoy Marek stepped forward, eyes burning with hope and terror. He lowered his voice, leaning in so only Rowan could hear. "Sira is brilliant, but she's stubborn. She'll refuse to leave her research even if the world falls apart around her. She needs someone who won't take no for an answer. His breath trembled. Promise me. Rowan nodded, a promise in his steady gaze. I'll do everything I can. Minutes later, in the frantic rush of the launch bay, techs in yellow vests swarmed around Rowan's drop module, locking clamps and running last checks. The air shimmered with tension and the stench of ozone. Dr. Sen, hands trembling as she fitted the neural uplink to Rowan's temple, lingered a moment longer than necessary. "Why do you always volunteer?" she whispered, her hand resting on his arm, the words barely more than breath. He looked away, eyes distant. "Maybe I'm searching for something," he replied, voice soft, not meeting her gaze. There was a history in those words, 1,000 unsaid things left suspended between them. Supreme Regent Kalos approached, towering and radiant, and offered the formal Veyron salute, a fist to the heart, palm open toward the stars. "My people will remember this, no matter the outcome." Rowan straightened, returning the gesture as best he could, feeling the regent's gravity, both literal and figurative. "Let's hope I give them something worth remembering." He climbed into the drop pod, strapping himself in as the hatch sealed with a hiss. Through the viewport, he caught Dr. Sen's gaze one last time. Her face was taut with worry, but her voice came steady through the calm. "Harness at 97%, the anomaly is intensifying, we're almost out of time." Rowan forced a smile. "Then I'd better move." As the countdown echoed, he closed his eyes for a heartbeat, conjuring the image of Sira Marek, midnight black skin traced with glowing white biolines, amber eyes bright with resolve, the face from her personnel file, alive in his memory. The launch alarm blared, gravity surged, fire enveloped the pod, and Rowan Drake fell toward the chaos below, hope and resolve burning brighter than the planet's own molten core. Rowan's pod slammed onto Vera's surface in a howl of tortured metal and buckling alloy, the impact rattling every bone in his body. The world reeled and then stilled, but alarms shrieked from every console, a ragged cacophony of red lights and error glyphs. Inside, gravity pressed down with monstrous weight, flattening him against the harness. Each heartbeat thundered. The reinforced hull groaned like it might implode at any moment. His fingers were numb as he slapped the release. The hatch ground open, resisting him with all the force of a planet determined to keep him pinned. Air rushed in, thick with dust and heat, as he crawled forward, dragging himself free. Every movement was torture. Muscles screamed, bones felt brittle. The gravity was a living thing, crushing, relentless, a force trying to mold him into the ground. The neural link buzzed against his skull. Through the static, Dr. Sen's voice filtered in, faint but steady. "Harness at 61%, Rowan. Your vitals are unstable." "Can you move?" He didn't trust his voice, so he grunted, forcing his limbs to respond. Metal creaked as his exosuit strained. He staggered to his feet, swaying. The world beyond the pod was chaos incarnate. The ground shattered into broken terraces, research domes twisted and torn as if by a giant's hands. Buildings stood at impossible angles, some half submerged in rippling bronze earth. Gravity pulses tore through the landscape, making it shift and buckle as though alive. Rowan stumbled forward, legs shaking. His boots sank into the dirt, each step a battle. The harness struggled, field generators whirring and whining. He could feel his heart pounding. He remembered the pressure mines on Io, the gravity wells of Ganymede, but this was worse. This was an unending crush, pushing him to the edge. "Rowan, your muscle density is spiking," Dr. Sen said, her tone shifting from concern to awe as she watched his biometric data. "Some of your gene mods are activating. Old mining protocols?" "Guess my body remembers more than I do," he muttered, voice rough. "Thanks for the warning." He staggered on, the suit adapting, his own biology straining to compensate. Every joint ached. Still, He pushed forward, scanning for the luminous rift lab through the haze of dust and energy distortion. Lightning flickered along the horizon, shadows dancing atop the ruins. A sudden gravity pulse rolled through, a wave of crushing force. Rowan barely had time to brace before it hit, knocking him off his feet. He slammed into the ground, vision going black at the edges. He gasped, fighting to breathe, then clawed forward, dragging himself beneath the shattered span of a collapsed girder as another pulse rippled past. It missed him by inches. The world groaned and twisted, debris shuddering above him. He paused, sucking in ragged breaths, listening to the rhythm of the pulses. They weren't random. There was a pattern, waves and lulls, a strange mechanical order beneath the chaos. He frowned. "This isn't natural," he muttered. Marek's voice crackled over the comm, strained. "Just find my daughter, Drake. Please, Sierra's all that matters." "I'm on it," Rowan replied, voice steady despite everything. He forced himself out from under the girder, suit servos groaning in protest. Ahead, the emergency lock of the main lab beckoned, a battered portal, half buried in debris. He pushed forward, the harness shuddering as he gripped a chunk of twisted metal and shoved it aside, muscles burning with borrowed strength. The door ground open with a shriek. Inside, the air was cooler, thick with ozone, and the metallic tang of ruptured systems. Lights flickered overhead, casting warped shadows across the corridor walls. Gravity anomalies twisted the floor, making each step uncertain. Rowan's HUD picked up faint life signs, pulsing weakly in the direction of the main lab. He followed, breathing hard, fighting the urge to collapse. Down one ruined passage, he found them. 3 Varens huddled among shattered consoles and overturned workstations. Sierra was unmistakable, her midnight skin traced with intricate, glowing white lines, her amber eyes bright and wary even in the dimness. Beside her, 2 colleagues, a tall Varen male clutching a bleeding side and a younger technician blinking through a cracked visor. Rowan straightened, wincing as the weight fought him. "Rowan Drake, Rescue Operations, I'm here to get you out." Sierra stepped forward, head tilted, suspicion warring with surprise. "No off-worlder could survive here," she said, her voice low and musical, yet edged with disbelief. Rowan managed a tight smile. "I'm full of bad ideas," he replied. "And a few good mods." He dropped to one knee beside the wounded Varen, unpacking his medkit. The man's side was a mess, shattered ribs, internal bleeding. Rowan worked fast, hands steady despite the shaking ground. Sierra moved to help, passing instruments and monitoring the patient's stats. She watched Rowan closely, her gaze flicking from his hands to his face, then to the bulging contours of his arms beneath the suit. "You're adapting," she breathed, wonder mingling with alarm. He grunted, checking the harness's readout. "So are you," he said softly. "You're still on your feet." A tremor shook the lab. The ceiling groaned, dust filtering down in golden shafts. Sierra pressed against him for balance, her body warm and tense against his. For a moment, scientific curiosity faltered, giving way to something else. A jolt of connection, unexpected and raw. Their eyes met. Sierra's gaze was searching, lit from within. "You shouldn't be alive," she whispered. Rowan's lips twitched. "Neither should you." The words lingered, loaded with something deeper than protocol. The moment was broken by a chorus of alarms, harsh and urgent. His comm crackled, encrypted Varen signals, voices urgent and hostile. Sierra's expression darkened. "Isolationists," she said. "They're closing in. They want my research, everything we've learned about the rift. They'll kill to get it." Rowan's jaw tightened. He checked the injured Varen's vitals, then scanned the data consoles. "Can you move?" he asked the wounded man. The Varen grimaced, but nodded. "With help." Rowan looped the man's arm around his shoulder, hauling him upright. Sierra rushed to a battered data core, her hands dancing over the controls with desperate speed. I have to secure the research. If they get this, everything is lost. Her voice trembled, equal parts fear and determination. Another tremor rattled the lab, dust raining down. Rowan glanced at Sierra, reading the urgency in her face. What are we dealing with, really? What happened here? Sierra hesitated, then stepped close, voice barely above a whisper. This isn't a natural disaster. Someone sabotaged our gravity experiments. They turned the rift against us, deliberately. Rowan felt a cold weight settle in his gut. The pattern in the pulses, the unnatural rhythm, it all fit. Who would do that? Sierra's eyes hardened. The isolationists want Vera cut off from the rest of the galaxy. They'll destroy the lab, the outpost, anything to keep the rift's secrets their own. She pressed a data crystal into his palm, fingers lingering a heartbeat too long. This holds everything. We can't let it fall into their hands. Rowan squeezed her hand, feeling the heat of her skin, the tremor in her touch. I won't let them. We'll get out, together. Behind them, the alarms grew louder. Shadows flickered in the ruined corridor as footsteps echoed closer. Rowan steadied the injured Veyron, Sierra at his side, and together they prepared to face the storm, bound by urgency, by purpose, and by the sudden spark of something more. They fled through the half-lit service tunnels, the world above their heads coming apart with every tremor. The ground jerked beneath them, gravity lurching in sickening waves, one moment pinning Rowan to the ground, the next sending him stumbling into the corrugated walls. Sierra darted ahead, her movements fluid despite the shifting pull, but even she was not immune. Her steps faltered, and Rowan caught her as she stumbled, his hand closing around her forearm. Her skin was cool beneath his fingers, the intricate white lines pulsing faintly as if alive. Your strength, Sierra panted, peering up at him with sharp, questioning eyes. You're stronger than any human should be. How are you adapting so quickly? Rowan managed a grim smile, hauling her upright as another tremor shivered the corridor. Old gene mods, mining days. They used to say I'd survive anywhere. Sierra's curiosity flickered, a spark of both scientific intrigue and something more personal. Your cell structure is shifting, she said, almost breathless, her hand lingering on his chest as if feeling the change beneath his suit. It shouldn't be possible. He steadied her as the tunnel pitched again. I've never seen anyone move like you do down here, he countered, his voice low, each word forced out against the gravity's crush. You're not just surviving, either. A violent gravity pulse slammed through the passage, throwing them sideways. Sierra collided with Rowan, her weight driving them both against the cold metal of the wall. For a heartbeat, the chaos outside faded. She clung to him, and he to her, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling. The fear, the adrenaline, the wild push of survival twisted into something else, something urgent and alive. Sierra's lips brushed his, tentative and electric. Rowan's arms tightened around her, pulling her close. The kiss was desperate, a collision of need and relief, as if the world might end before they could breathe again. She pulled back, eyes wide, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Veyron biochemistry, she murmured, her voice trembling with astonishment. May be helping you adapt. My proximity, our contact, it could be catalyzing your gene mods. Rowan's heart hammered in his chest, the aftershock of the kiss lingering. Then let's stay close, he said, meaning more than just for survival. Their moment shattered as footsteps thundered behind them, metal boots, voices barking in the Veyron tongue, armed pursuers. Rowan tugged Sierra into a side corridor, ducking beneath a fallen pipe. They slipped through a cracked maintenance hatch, barely a meter ahead of their hunters. Inside, the tunnel narrowed, darkness pressing in. Rowan's suit lights flickered across a section of exposed wall, metal veined with a dull, unnatural blue glow. He froze. Something about the device embedded in the panel was wrong. It hummed at a pitch that made his skin crawl, its design alien. Sira knelt beside him, her hands tracing the strange glyphs etched across the casing. "This isn't Varen," she whispered, eyes wide with shock. "No one in our labs built this. It's been planted, meant to amplify the rift's effects, to incite chaos and division." Rowan's mind raced. Planted by who? The isolationists? She shook her head, frustration and fear mingling in her voice. Maybe, maybe not. But whoever it was, they're using technology that doesn't belong on this world. Another rumble shook the corridor. Rowan pulled her up, guiding her into a shadowed maintenance alcove as the passage buckled and then steadied. For a moment, the gravity field stabilized and the relentless pressure eased. They pressed close, breathless. Sira's gaze flicked to Rowan's face, then away, as if searching for a safe topic. "I should explain my research," she said softly, her voice carrying in the hush. "We were studying cross-species adaptation. The goal was to enable humans and Varans to survive each other's worlds, to thrive, not just endure." Rowan shifted closer, his shoulder brushing hers. "You think your work triggered something in me? That the gravity fields, or maybe you, are the catalyst?" Sira's lips curved, her expression shifting from worry to fascination. "It's possible. My biochemistry, it's designed to interface with adaptive systems. You're more than a test subject now, Rowan. You're proof." Their eyes locked, the connection between them as palpable as the gravity outside. "We should investigate further," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of scientific hunger and growing trust. He leaned in, the moment stretching between them. This time, the kiss was slow, exploratory, intentional, built on more than desperation. Sira's hand slid up to the back of his neck, fingers tangling in his hair, as if she needed to anchor herself. Rowan's breath caught. The tunnel faded away. For a moment, there was only the electric thrill of discovery of each other, each. Explosions echoed distantly, shaking the structure and sending a shower of dust from the ceiling. Their comms crackled to life with harsh static, then a voice. Varen, clipped and urgent. Sira yanked her earpiece in, listening as her eyes narrowed in alarm. "Hostiles are converging," she translated quickly. "They've deployed gravity amplifiers throughout the compound. If they overload the field, the rift could collapse. Or worse." Rowan's jaw clenched. "We need to move, fast. Where's your research core?" Sira glanced at the tunnel map projected from her wrist. "My prototype is in the remote annex, at the far end of the facility. It's the only thing that could counteract the sabotage, stabilize the gravity field before it tears Vera apart." "Then that's our target." Rowan's voice was steel. He checked his harness, then squeezed Sira's hand. "Stay with me. We'll get there." She nodded, determination burning in her eyes. "We have to. My work. It's not just about saving ourselves. If we can activate the prototype, we could save the entire planet." Another explosion rocked the complex, this one closer. Emergency klaxons wailed, echoing down the corridor. Rowan pulled Sira to her feet, and together they plunged deeper into the maze of service tunnels, hope and danger racing in equal measure through their veins. Their mission was no longer just survival. Now they were the last line of defense for Vera itself. They pressed through the shattered outer hatch into the open, battered landscape, the remnants of the facility falling away behind them. The world was chaos incarnate, fractured ground split by yawning fissures, the air trembling with every surge of invisible force. Gravity waves shimmered above the surface, warping the horizon, bending light itself. The bronze soil heaved and settled in unpredictable pulses, and each step felt like crossing a shifting minefield. Rowan braced the wounded scientist, Yalen, Sira's quiet colleague, against his shoulder, adjusting their combined weight as the ground tried to drag them down. Sira and Talon moved ahead, picking their way through the debris, their outlines distorted by the rippling air. Every few meters, Sira would pause, scanning the terrain with a battered gravimeter, while Talon scouted for the safest path, his senses sharpened by adrenaline and the necessity of survival. "How did your people survive this?" Rowan called, voice hoarse as he helped Yalen over a collapsed support strut. "This isn't just a disaster, it's like the planet itself is trying to shake us off." Sierra glanced back, her face shadowed by concern. Vera's gravity increased over millennia. It was gradual. Our ancestors adapted, generation after generation. Our bodies changed, bones thickened, muscles strengthened. What you're experiencing should take centuries. But you, she paused, eyes lingering on him, you're adapting in hours. Rowan managed a lopsided grin, though sweat streaked his face. Good genes, or maybe just stubbornness. Sierra fell in beside him as they navigated a narrow ridge. "Tell me about Earth. What is it like to move without all this?" She gestured to the fractured ground, the oppressive pull that made every breath a battle. Rowan's eyes softened, memory threading through his words. "It's lighter, freer. The air is sweet, and you can run for miles without your legs turning to lead. There are blue oceans that stretch beyond sight, forests so green it hurts your eyes, mountains where you can leap and feel the wind hold you up. Gravity is gentle. Sometimes you almost forget it's there." Sierra's gaze searched his face, her curiosity shifting from scientific to something quieter, deeper. "It sounds like dreaming," she whispered. "Is that why you kissed me? Because you remember what freedom feels like?" Rowan laughed, the sound rough but warm. "Maybe. Or maybe it's because you make surviving here feel like flying." Sierra's white markings pulsed faintly, the lines along her cheeks brightening with embarrassment and something more. Her lips parted in a smile, eyes glowing with unspoken warmth. "You're a strange man, Rowan Drake." Before he could reply, the ground lurched beneath them, a violent quake tearing through the earth. A wall of debris crashed down, stones tumbling from a fractured cliff above. Rowan instinctively threw himself over Sierra, shielding her as the tremor peaked, the world roaring in their ears. For a breathless moment, gravity doubled, pressing them flat. Then, as quickly as it had come, the force faded, leaving them gasping in a sudden, trembling silence. They staggered to their feet, dust and shards of bronze earth clinging to their skin. Talon waved them forward, but as they crested the next rise, shouts echoed across the plain. Figures in heavy, angular armor, Veyran isolationists, emerged from the shifting haze, their weapons trained and ready. Their leader, a towering figure with silvered plates and a mask of burnished bone, stepped forward, voice booming. "Sierra Marek, surrender the data core. Your research belongs to Vera, not the off-worlders." Sierra's jaw clenched. Rowan felt her tense beside him, her hand inching toward a small device at her belt, a gravity modulator, blinking with latent power. Talon drew a battered sidearm, holding it steady, but the odds were hopeless. Rowan spoke, buying seconds. "If you want the data, come and get it, but you'll have to go through me." The isolationists fanned out, ready to surround them. Sierra flicked her gaze to Rowan, and he caught the plan in her eyes, a wild, dangerous hope. She adjusted the modulator, keying in a sequence with trembling fingers. "I can create a bridge," she whispered, "over that fissure." It won't last long. A new quake tore open a widening chasm at their feet, molten light shimmering in the depths. Sierra hurled the modulator, its field blooming into existence, a narrow, flickering ribbon of gravity arching across the void. "Now!" she shouted. Rowan launched himself at the nearest soldier, moving with speed that felt impossible. The gravity's weight now an ally instead of an enemy. He dodged a pulse blast, seized the man's arm and flung him aside. The strength in his limbs was unreal, his muscles surging with newfound power. For an instant, the isolationists hesitated, taken aback by his resilience. Talon fired twice, pinning their attackers behind a chunk of broken dome. "Go!" he yelled. Syrah dashed onto the grav bridge, Talon and Yalen following, their forms wavering as the field rippled beneath them. Rowan darted after, leaping the last meter to land beside Syrah as the bridge flickered dangerously, the edges blurring. Another blast from behind. One of the isolationists had recalibrated his weapon, aiming at the modulator's field node. "Syrah, it's collapsing!" Talon shouted. Syrah reached back, her arm outstretched. Rowan felt the gravity falter, the bridge shuddering beneath him. He jumped, but the ground fell away. His hand found Syrah's, her grip iron strong. For a heartbeat, he dangled over the void, weightless except for her hold. She hauled him up, her face inches from his, breath hot with relief and fear. They tumbled to safety, the grav bridge vanishing in a burst of fractured light. Behind them, the isolationists cursed, cut off by the widening fissure. Exhausted, Rowan collapsed onto the cracked earth, breathing hard. Syrah sank beside him, her head coming to rest on his chest, her hair brushing his jaw. Talon crouched nearby, weapons still trained on the far side, while Yalen slumped against a rock, eyes wide with awe. "No one's ever crossed a grav bridge before," Syrah said softly, wonder and pride woven through her words. Rowan's laughter was shaky, but real. First time for everything. He felt the wild energy still surging through his veins, a rush that left him both exhilarated and dazed. For a rare, quiet moment, the chaos faded. Syrah's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. She tilted her face to look at him, her white markings glowing softly in the dusk. "You make me believe adaptation isn't just survival, it's transformation." Rowan smiled, pulling her closer as the fractured world around them receded, leaving only the warmth of shared breath and the promise of something more. They reached the annex as dusk bled into the ruined sky, the structure looming like a wounded beast on the edge of the world. The facility's thick alloy walls glowed with the force of stress fractures, but the annex itself stood fortified, unwelcoming and bristling with danger. Surveillance drones traced jittery paths overhead, sensors glinting crimson. On the ground, isolationist soldiers moved in tight patrols, weapons slung low and ready, gravity amplifiers, boxy humming machines that vibrated with visible distortion, circled the compound, their low-frequency thrum thickening the air. Rowan peered from behind a shattered barricade, his breath steady despite the exhaustion burning in his limbs. Syrah crouched beside him, her gaze fixed on the amplifiers. "If those units synchronize," she whispered, voice tight with dread, "we'll have a singularity event. Everything within kilometers, gone in a heartbeat." She swallowed. "The isolationists think they can control it. They're wrong." Talon surveyed the soldiers. "Too many. A frontal attack is suicide." Rowan scanned the perimeter, mind racing. He spotted a narrow vent shaft, half obscured by debris, a maintenance access, barely wide enough for a human. "What about that?" he murmured, pointing. Syrah followed his gaze, her face paling. "It's too tight for any Veyron. The gravity flux, if it shifts—" She stopped, lips pressing together in worry. He squeezed her hand. "I'm not Veyron, and I've come this far." He gave her a crooked smile. "If I don't come back—" She cut him off, pulling him close. Her kiss was fierce and unguarded, hope and fear tangling between them. "Come back," she whispered. No scientific curiosity now, only the simple plea of someone who had come to need him. Rowan touched his forehead to hers, feeling the delicate pulse of her markings. "I'll do everything I can." He gave her hand one last squeeze, then slipped toward the shaft. The maintenance vent yawned before him, barely the width of his shoulders. Inside, the gravity fluctuated in waves, crushing, then almost buoyant, as if the planet couldn't decide whether to let him pass. Rowan crawled forward, arms burning, bones aching as the pressure built. But his body responded, muscle fibers thickening, bones reinforcing, lungs adapting to the thinner, denser air. His heart pounded, but he pressed on, inch by inch. A final surge nearly pinned him flat, but he focused, summoning the memory of Sira's touch, her voice, the life waiting on the other side. With a guttural sound, he forced himself onward until suddenly the shaft opened into light. He tumbled into the control hub, rolling behind a bank of consoles. The room was alive with tension, screens blinking, the air charged with static. At the far end, an isolationist lieutenant stood over the controls, armored in black and silver, his eyes fierce beneath a bone-white visor. Rowan rose, squaring his stance. The lieutenant's voice was disdainful. "You shouldn't be here, off-worlder." "Too late for that," Rowan replied, fists clenched. The fight was brutal and close. The Varen charged, swinging a heavy shock baton. Rowan dodged, his new strength turning what would have been a desperate retreat into a controlled dance. The baton glanced off his forearm, pain flaring, but bones held. He countered, driving his fist into the Varen's side. The two crashed into equipment, sparks flying, the hum of the amplifiers growing sharper. "You can't stop this," the lieutenant snarled, striking again. Rowan caught his arm, twisting it until the baton fell away. He drove the Varen back with a surge of energy he barely recognized, a strength that felt both alien and utterly his. In a final, decisive move, he pinned the lieutenant and slammed him into the console, the Varen slumping unconscious to the floor. Rowan stumbled to the controls, breathing hard. The Annex's security panel glowed beneath his hands. He keyed the emergency override, voice ragged. "Sira, I'm in. Bring everyone." Moments later, Sira, Talon, and Yalen burst through the side door, ducking blaster fire from the few remaining guards. Rowan disabled the inner locks, and Sira raced to the central console, sliding a shimmering core from her satchel. Her hands danced across the keys, calibrating the prototype's settings. "We have only minutes," she said, her voice taut with focus. "The amplifiers are almost in sync. If we don't trigger the counter-resonance, nothing will survive." Talon and Rowan dragged barricades to the doors, propping them against the reinforced frame. Outside, soldiers regrouped, the sound of booted feet growing louder. Gravity surges shuddered through the floor, rattling the consoles. Sweat dripped from Rowan's brow as he jammed a metal beam into the door handle. The comm crackled, Marek's voice, distorted but triumphant. "The evidence is transmitting. The sabotage, the foreign technology, it's being broadcast planet-wide. Reinforcements are mobilizing, but you must hold. Help is coming." Rowan grinned despite the rising fear. "Copy that, envoy. We'll buy you time." The amplifier's hum reached a fever pitch. Gravity spiked, dragging them all toward the floor. Sira's fingers never slowed, even as the console flickered and alarms howled. "Almost there," she breathed. Talon pressed his shoulder to the barricade, eyeing Rowan. "They're preparing for a breach." Rowan nodded, eyes locked on Sira. "Protect her. Protect the console. That's all that matters." His voice was hard, unyielding. Talon met his gaze, a rare note of respect in his voice. "Your courage will be remembered, human, by Vera and by me." Outside, the doors shook beneath the impact of heavy weapons. Metal screamed as the isolationists began their final assault. Rowan braced himself, every muscle ready. Inside, the world narrowed to one mission: hold the line, whatever the cost. The doors shuddered again, buckling under the onslaught, as gravity surged and hope hung in the balance. Rowan woke to the gentle hush of machinery, the scent of antiseptic, and the weightless warmth of soft amber light washing across his skin. For a moment, his mind drifted in the space between dreams and memory. Flashes of chaos, gravity tearing at his bones, Sira's hand clutching his own. He turned his head and saw the medbay's curved ceiling arching above, translucent panels pulsing with a calming glow. Beside him, Varen and human medics moved with quiet efficiency, conferring in low voices as they checked his readings. He sat up, blinking, and became aware of his own body. different, stronger. His muscles responded with smooth, unforced power. Every movement felt light, efficient. He flexed his hands. The ache and fatigue were gone, replaced by something new and vibrant, as if his very cells hummed with energy. One of the human medics smiled. "Welcome back, Rowan. You had us worried." A Varen healer nodded, her markings gleaming silver blue. "Your adaptation exceeded all projections. We have never seen anything like it." He scanned the room, searching for her, and there she was. Syrah stood near the foot of his cot, her eyes wide with hope and a joy she made no effort to hide. She moved closer, her white biolines tracing soft patterns along her arms and cheeks, shimmering in the medbay's light. "You're awake," she breathed, her voice trembling with relief. He smiled, reaching for her hand. "You're here. I was starting to think this was another gravity dream." She squeezed his hand, her touch grounding him. "You made it, Rowan. We all did. Thanks to you." Outside the medbay's windows, Vera's sky pulsed with the first colors of morning. But inside, the world was transformed in other ways. Word of the conspiracy had swept across Vera like wildfire. The proof envoy Merrick had broadcast, hacked data streams, recovered isolationist communiques, and the undeniable evidence of alien technology had rocked the planet to its core. News feeds flickered with images. Marek at the council dais, his voice clear and resolute, exposing the sabotage for all to see. "This disaster was not a natural event," he declared. "It was engineered, meant to keep us apart, to breed fear, to isolate Vera from the universe beyond." His words echoed through city domes and mountain settlements, stirring outrage and resolve. The isolationist leaders, stripped of power and standing, were paraded before the people, their faces shadows of regret. In their place, a wave of unity swept the planet. For the first time, Varen and human banners flew side by side, and the two peoples, once wary, sometimes hostile, stood shoulder to shoulder in hope. Rowan's own story spread just as quickly. Scientists and diplomats descended on the medbay, their questions buzzing with excitement. His rapid adaptation, muscles, bones, even reflexes reshaped for Vera's crushing gravity, became the foundation for a new branch of research. Medics scanned him, geneticists analyzed his blood, and engineers pored over Syrah's prototype, their wonder palpable. Interspecies cooperation was no longer a theoretical dream. It was living proof, written in Rowan's very DNA. Envoy Merrick, more statesman than ever, convened an emergency summit. On live holofeeds, he and Supreme Regent Kylo stood together, flanked by humans and Varens alike. "The era of division ends now," Marek proclaimed. "Let us pledge to build a world where difference is our greatest strength." The pledge was echoed by Kalos in the formal Varen tongue, his iridescent armor gleaming in the studio lights. A joint council was formed, equal seats for both worlds, a new symbol of trust. Treaties were signed, promises made. Rowan and Syrah, in their quiet way, became living symbols of this new age, unwilling heroes at the center of a movement that reached beyond Vera's clouds. But in the tranquil hush of the medbay, it was only the two of them. Syrah perched on the edge of his cot, her gaze soft and searching. "I thought I'd lost you," she whispered, fingertips tracing a glowing line along his cheekbone. "I kept thinking, what if the gravity pulse had been stronger? What if the doors hadn't held?" Her voice broke, the vulnerability in her eyes unguarded. "But I believe in us now, in what we can build." He caught her hand, his thumb brushing the delicate web of biolines on her wrist. "I never imagined surviving Vera would lead me here. A future where our differences make us stronger." He tucked a loose, braided tendril behind her ear, letting his fingers linger in her hair. "You gave me something I didn't know I was missing." She smiled, radiant. "Will you stay? Work with me?" There's so much more to discover about adaptation, About each other. Rowan's laughter was low, genuine. How could I say no? We have research to finish, cities to rebuild, and maybe a life to start. Their dreams spilled out in whispers. Joint research teams, human Varen schools, new technologies for travel and medicine, a home that belonged to both of them. Syrah's hope was infectious, her vision clear. Together, she said, we'll show everyone what's possible. The weeks that followed were a blur of celebration and rebuilding. At the Unity Festival, the council convened in the heart of Helios Outpost, banners streaming overhead, music rising from both species. Rowan stood in the crowd, suddenly shy as Envoy Marek called his name. For bravery in the face of despair, and for proving that the boundaries between us are only what we imagine, we honor Rowan Drake, Marek announced. The crowd erupted in cheers. Syrah slipped her arm through Rowan's, beaming with pride as he accepted the medal, her presence his true reward. That night, in their shared quarters overlooking Vera's transformed horizon, Rowan and Syrah stood together at the wide window. The landscape below was forever changed, scars of the disaster visible, yes, but new growth shimmering in the aftermath. Towers of human design stood alongside Varen domes, their lights entwined like constellations reborn. Syrah leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. "It's only the beginning," she murmured. He kissed her softly, the world narrowing to the warmth of her lips, the promise in her touch. "The crisis is over. Now we get to choose what comes next." In the gentle amber glow, they shared a final, lingering kiss, a union of hope, science, and love, knowing their bond was now the cornerstone of a new era. Under a sky marked by both tragedy and hope, Rowan and Syrah embraced their shared destiny, a future built on adaptation, unity, and the power of love that defied gravity itself. This brings our story to a close. Don't forget to hit subscribe, give the video a like, and share in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. Our team will truly appreciate your support. There are plenty more exciting stories waiting for you on our channel. See you in the next video.